I see the future. And right now, our future isn't that great.
Some people are born with extraordinary gifts.
Whoa.
But there's a secret organization who wants to turn them into weapons.
We're going to create an army the world's never seen.
You really think I'm gonna let that happen?
On February 6th, see the movie that pushes action to a whole new level. You need to experience this one on the big screen. Push. Rated PG-13. In theaters Friday, February 6th.
I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Wars. Prepare for Prattle.
It was a defensive exercise.
Yeah, best defense is a good offense. Or is it the other way around?
Welcome to Prattle World. I'm your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan. And in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to Secret Defenders, where I task my guests to defend their favourite movies that are underrated, infamous, or obscure. And this week, we're once again having a guest defend another underrated, infamous, or obscure movie. And it's I Am Jack's Musings. It's bringing to the fore a discount X-Men film for us to review. He will be defending it, and I'm very interested to hear his defense of the film. But before we get started, Jack, why did you want to defend this one specifically?
Well, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure. And I think this is my first Secret Defenders appearance.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
So-
I think there's some people I'm like, I'm going to do this with them. You know, this at the moment I'm having the patrons like yourself, your kind self, join Patreon if you're interested. That are now I'm freeing up my choices. We went for the obscure, the weird, and we might go back to that next year perhaps. But the moment patrons are picking all the way, so they decided they wanted this over Andy's, which again he didn't pick. So I feel bad for him, but he is getting next month. That's when we're getting the Memoirs of an Invisible Man. But yeah, so I opened the door to the fandom to pick, and you suggested this. So again, there's a lot of stuff I go, you know, are you up for doing this? Are you kind of interested in doing something like this or something on this? And you're always well up for most
the
of
answer's
the
always
things.
yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. So I thought, you know, even Andy hasn't done a Secret Defenders yet, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Possibly at the end of the year, I think. But yeah, so I'm trying to loosen up a little bit and give a little bit more freedom to have some maybe less obscure, less weird, less just sheer mad films, and have a bit more kind of general kind of things that people will have seen or maybe not have heard of, but still fairly not as on the crazy obscure level as I'm used to. So yeah, I thought, and you'd mentioned this. I think Rhea mentioned how much she liked this as well, and I was like, I remember turning it off, and I was like, you know, I can't remember why I turned it off. I think I'm now recalling why I turned it off. But we'll get into it. But what was it specifically about this one that you were like, of all the films I have to defend in my life, why did you pick this one specifically?
Yeah, I know we discussed a couple, didn't we? And like one day maybe we'll come some of those will come back round, because I think another one is probably one that most people would turn off or not be interested in. And this is a mainstream movie, I suppose, but it's certainly on the indie side. And I'm not sure how many people would have gone out of their way to see this. I don't think. But it sort of hit at a time where, I don't know, like maybe saying it's ahead of its time is a bit grandiose, but I think it's a superhero movie, quote unquote. It's a powers movie, really, isn't it? That I think doesn't want to just be generic, doesn't want to just show you the usual things. It wants to try and kind of create its own universe, create its own world. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it does kind of play on those kind of X-Men power sets, but it doesn't just want to be an X-Men movie. It wants to have something to say. It wants to do it in a different, I think the way it chooses to film and to, you know, we'll get into cinematography, I'm sure, and the framing, all of that I think is really different than everything we've seen from the genre before. And, you know, to compare it to X-Men, yes, there's many outstanding 5-star, 10 out of 10, A+ comics that you've definitely read, and I've read quite a lot of them too, there isn't a lot of 5-star, 10 out of 10 A-star X-Men movies.
Fair point.
A load of those are pretty bad. And I think, yeah, like you said, this is kind of sci-fi, it's genre, it's superhero. The thing I most closely related it to when I first saw it, I think, was Jumper, the teleportation movie with Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which again was okay. It did a decent job. I thought it established an interesting world. Nowhere near as interesting or brave as the book, but then the book is all about a key feature of the book is his parents die or his mum dies in a terrorist plane attack. Right. So whoa, we're not going to do that, obviously, after
maybe not, early 2000s.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is sort of playing in that world of trying to create its own superhero power set movie with its own rules and its own established world. And yeah, so I think I'm here to kind of push that perhaps I think this should be due a bit of a reappraisal, really, which I know I'm in the minority because looking at the stats online, it ain't a popular movie.
But that's what we're here for. I want to be proven wrong a lot of the time. I'd love to love every movie that I watch, and we're certainly going to hear it. And I think you've already mentioned something that I do actually like about the film, which is good. Which I'm glad we're on the same wavelength, at least in that juncture. But I think I did have a kind of around this era. There was kind of I am a bit of I have friends that are music snobs, and I was definitely a bit of a comic book snob at the time. I went from being this kid who was reading all this stuff and enjoying it and getting well versed in this world, and people would make fun of me and not like it and say, well, what's this, and use some very derogatory language towards me and describing what it was like or what I must be like, in a negative way. And I think it got to a point where they started coming out, and then there was the imitators. I do the Clone Wars all the time, and I think when we finally got X-Men movies, I was like, oh, great. But then we started getting, your jumpers, your things that are again, the Temu, version of the X-Men or whatever, bargain basement bin stuff. You got a few years ago, they did a Netflix one with Jamie Foxx and Joseph Gordon-Levitt where they take the drug, which I was like, well, that's, that was in the comics. They do the mutant growth hormone. That was in the Daredevil comics they did for a while. That idea. Heroes, I think, is probably the best version of that idea, like an X-Men style idea.
Heroes season 1, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, true. That's the only one I've got on DVD. That's the only one I own. There's a reason for that. I did drop off after 2, which, again, due to the writer's strike, I can't entirely blame that show, but there you have it. But yeah, I think that was probably the best version of that idea for me, the X-Men. And again, Jeff Loeb was involved, Tim Sale was involved, so it kind of felt like it was kind of an extension of comic books and the comic book world. But yeah, there's a few others like that in this kind of ilk. I wasn't a big fan of the Incredibles because I felt like it was I thought it was absolutely a rip-off at the time. I've softened on it now. I like it now. But at the time I was like, it's the Fantastic Four. You're just ripping off the Fantastic Four. You've got a registration program, which is X-Men, that are registering all the heroes and making them quit and retire. Or it's very even Watchmen as well. And then there was, what else was there in there? There was, there's like a technological villain. You've got a mole man. I was like, I've seen this. I've read this. I think that Stan Lee made the best comment about The Incredibles. He went, again, this is kind of like a dig, but also kind of a bit of respect from him. He goes, oh, feels like something I wrote.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's probably the best thing you could have possibly said. This is years before Disney was owned Marvel or had any connection at all. He did go to the premiere, of course, and I think they should have at least given him probably a bit more credit than that. But yeah, I think around this era, I'm kind of pushing back on stuff that's not Marvel, but trying to be Marvel or trying to be a comic book movie. And I get it. I get the idea. I get the trying to capture that kind of genie in the bottle. But I was kind of I think I was a bit snobbish towards that kind of stuff, for good or for worse.
Whereas now, of course, you're so open and not. I mean, you
Yeah.
generally are, to be fair, except for this movie. Fuck this movie.
Fuck
Still.
this movie. Fuck it right in its ass. No, I mean, like, I'm very open to hearing the argument, but
You're no gatekeeper at all. But and some things you just don't like, and that's okay.
I mean,
you're allowed to be wrong, Dan. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I was wrong about Moon Knight. People were like, I didn't like the female protagonist in that and her character, and you and Rhea were like, Dan's wrong. # Dan's wrong, and I was like, fair enough. I went to see the new Bob Dylan film, and I despised it. It's winning all the awards and getting, everyone's seeing it and loving it. And my friend Matt, who I went to see it with, they bloody love it, and they're like, it's only you, Dan. It's only you who doesn't like it. And I was like, and I said it's probably because I watch Walk Hard so much and enjoy Walk Hard so much.
Yeah.
I now can't enjoy a music biopic because it's kind of ruined it for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know so much about the X-Men and that world that it feels like anything that's dipping its toe in it feels to you kind of maybe cliche or trite or been there, read that. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Totally fair.
And I think that's definitely a me problem. That's definitely a me problem. But I'm
I don't think it's a problem you being well versed and knowledgeable, not at all. And this film is definitely not a you problem. This is why I'm here at Secret Defenders. This is a me perhaps over enjoying this movie, certainly compared to the wider world.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of kind of Marvel characters or comic book actors who play comic book characters in this. So there's a bit of that kind of connective tissue as well. So I can see that as well. It's got a great cast. Again, I think much like Ed TV that we covered recently, link in the show notes. I'll do the links, Jack. I know you won't do them, but I'll do them. I'll make sure I do them. But I don't know if they're utilized to the best of their ability. But here we go, Jack. I'm going to open the floor. This is your opportunity to push your ideas into my mind and to change my perspective.
I just got to go all black-eyed and just hope I can convince you in the end that my powers will come through. I don't know. I think that watching it this time, the thing that really made me think of, and something else which probably isn't very good, but I'm really quite passionate about and loved from being a teenager, is the movie Hackers with Angelina Jolie and John Lee Miller. Now that is, again, totally doesn't represent well cyberculture or hacking, considering it's a movie called Hackers. I don't think it's anywhere near realistic, but it's just it's a movie that feels like it's got really good world building in a short space of time. Like, I buy that these are a group of people and that they're good at what they do, and this is a universe that could exist somewhere. This weird skateboarding, computer game playing, like looking as if you're going into Tron hacking world. But yeah, I used to love that movie, and actually I think that movie really holds up if you watch it with that sense of kind of ironic fun. And I think this is almost like a superhero version of that. I think the world that it builds in a short space of time, I totally buy that there are these people in this world and they have these kind of, because they're not overpowered. Like I say, it's kind of like it's like sci-fi, but almost like PSY-fi rather than SCI. Like, it's all kind of like mind powers. I quite like that. And you and I know we differ on our views on some of the kind of heroes and comics that we like. I do struggle with a lot of DC stuff because I find that everybody is so overpowered. A god versus a god. Oh, I mean, okay, all right. I mean, how interesting is that? And I know, again, some people don't like the idea of criticizing some of these characters for being overpowered. It's just how I feel. And I often find it really difficult. You've got the Flash who can do all of this, a Superman who can do all of that. And then you have to create a threat that's even more stronger in order to... I kind of like my stuff a bit more. And I know you hate this, grounded.
That's I like grounded stories. I wanted, the opening of the new Daredevil show didn't feel very grounded to me.
So I haven't seen any of that yet.
I won't spoil it. But yeah, there's a place where I do like that. I like those street level characters. I like the Luke Cages and things. And I think it's when it's supposed to be like some cosmic level thing, like this big like comic book event, and they go, like Dark Phoenix is a good example. I think the guy who directed that, I can't remember his name, Tim something. It was Simon Kinberg, I think it is. And he went, they're like, we're doing Phoenix Saga, we're going to do it properly. We're not just half-arsing it into X-Men 3. but it's going to be grounded. And I was like, it's a fucking cosmic saga. It's a spacefaring opera. Like, if someone came out and said, this Star Wars film is going to be grounded, people would be like, what? What the fuck are you on about? So I feel that way about that. I think it's when people use it and I'm like, I think you're using that in the wrong way, or I think there's a better way to phrase it, or to say that it's, it has an emotional core, or the relationships are real, or something like that. I think saying grounded, there's something about that. Just again, in the past, people go, I think that's just like a buzzword. It kind of doesn't really mean a lot. But again, back to your defense. I just wanted to clarify my feelings.
I think that's fair, and I think perhaps that's where this is a little bit different. I quite like the little. Well, I guess we'll talk about specifics of the film, but we get like in 2 days' time, you get this like near future idea. I like that idea that these people are kind of in the world around you, and unless you're kind of a key witness to it, you wouldn't know. But also, you may be a key witness to it, but then because there are wipers and there are pushers and a bit like kind of the old Men in Black flashy pen, you wouldn't know anyway, because they have the power in order to make these kind of events disappear. So I think that works really well. And I think that adds to kind of the vibe of the movie. It's a really low budget movie. Like, it's really indie. Like, it's about 38 million or something it cost. And the way that they film it is really interesting. The way that they use different kind of cinematography techniques, they use different kind of filters or lenses or film stock at times to try and give you a different sense. There isn't too much out there in terms of the trivia, but I think this idea of like they were using like pinhole cameras through like the side of vans and stuff, so they could get like guerrilla style shots. I think all lends this sense of kind of urban reality to it, which I really like. I like that sense of this feeling like a world that could actually be out there around you, in kind of the same way like the Shyamalan superhero movies do, like Unbreakable and Split and Glass. I think I like that idea that there are these powered people, but not necessarily in a world that requires that the world doesn't have to change because they exist in it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it doesn't grow the world. It kind of like that person affects the real world, but not in a massive way. It's not like Superman revealing himself.
Right.
It's just a guy who's just a bit stronger, or has a slight, psychic power, or it doesn't quite work. I will say there is not a lot of consistency when it comes to the powers and their use. Like, at the beginning, Chris Evans is struggling to roll a dice, and then
that is explained, though. To be fair,
I don't know. I don't know if it's fully explained.
Well, because he's been in hiding, hasn't he, since he's been about 10 years old? So he's not accessing his power set, because if he uses it, he'll make himself known to the Division, who will come and find him.
That's fair, but then he gets back and he's hovering. He's got a Beretta or a handgun. He's hovering in his hand like 2 minutes later, and I was like, where do we like? That's quite a jump.
I hear you.
To make.
And maybe it's because I've watched it a lot of times. I don't know. Like back when it first came out and it was out on DVD, it was like, I'm buying that and I'm watching it, and I think I probably rinsed it quite a bit. Yeah. But we get this kind of backstory to him, to Nick, that's Chris Evans' character, and to Cassie, who is Dakota Fanning's character. And both their parents were either murdered or taken by Division because they were really powerful within their set. So I think the idea is meant to be that Nick would be a really powerful mover, as he is in this. He's a telekinetic. So the only reason he isn't one of the best in the world is because he's not been using his power. So I think he has this innate ability that he can just do stuff. Because you see later on when the bullets are flying and he just sort of, I'm going to get shot. He puts his hands up and he creates the mover force field. He didn't even know he could do that. He's never done that before. But because he has this hereditary skill, this hereditary level of power, I think maybe I can explain things away, or maybe it's like watching it a lot that reveals these things, and maybe that's not good enough. I don't know. But
yeah.
I think some of these things can be explained, and I think that does, in some ways for me, help to kind of enrich this world.
Yeah, I mean, there is also this thing where they're like, "Oh, you're second generation, I'm second generation. We both we're both shit at our powers." And then, but then it's not really like it's almost like they're going extinct, or they're becoming less powerful as they go along, and that's why the drug is important, because they're becoming basically less powerful, and they are such a powerful force, a hidden force within the world, that they need that. But then, when the plot calls for it, they're actually really good at their powers when they need to be. They just all of a sudden are very good. Like Cassie at the end is very good when she tricks the other Watcher. And before that, she's like, "I'm going to die. This is my thing," and you believe it, and you're like, "Oh, she is going to die," and then she figures out a way to kind of turn the tables on the other one. But again, it's kind of like, oh, okay, where do we don't see that progression, or we don't see do it have a thing that occurs that maybe the only other thing I can think for Nick is that he meets the girl and he falls in love again, and that's his kind of motivating factor for his powers getting better. And I also thought this drug at the end was he was going to take it, and then that's when it was going to be like, you've seen me be shitting my powers all the way through this, and now we're going to get like full steam ahead. And he was going to be like, there's a poster which looks amazing, which has Nick like literally using his powers, and you have that wonderful special effect, that kind of I don't know how to describe it, but it's kind of like an iridescent.
It's almost Doctor Strangey. It's almost like the
translucent
shields they come up with.
Yeah, kind of this circular motion thing. I really like that effect, and you see it from the other mover at the end of the film, the bad one, the baddie mover. And this poster, yeah, this poster.
Victor, he is, if it matters.
Victor, yeah, sure. We'll call him Victor. It does think he has a single line in the film.
Yeah, he is Victor, though.
He is Victor. Well, he's not the Victor at the end, is he?
Nice.
So yeah, we have this amazing poster. Cars are flying, these guys are flying. It's on like a highway, and you see them like really, and I was like, oh, cool. I really can't wait to see that in the movie. It's not in the movie. There's not a moment like that.
No, it's quite underplayed, to be fair to you. And I think that it's a cool poster, I agree, but it does it oversells what this movie is going to do. But I think, again, I understand why. Like, perhaps you would go in wanting more superhero action, if you like, or more powered action, but I quite like the underplayed nature of it, and that it's all kind of gritty and dirty. And the Cassie thing is really interesting, what you said, because I part of it I think is her, like you say, downplaying herself. My mum is the best watcher ever, and she's been taken by division, so she just doesn't feel like she can live up to her. She's also like 10 or something, or she says she's 13, but she doesn't look 13 because it's young Dakota Fanning. She looks much younger, doesn't she? So I don't know if that's partly just her downplaying her abilities, but also that idea of like, in the moment when you have to do something, you hear these stories like a parent's kid's trapped under the car, so they manage to pick it up. It's like, this is the life or death moment. Does she unlock her next level? I don't know. But, again, maybe it's me explaining it away, but I think there are answers to some of these questions. But for you to feel that there's an inconsistency is still a failing of the movie that I have to agree. The power set thing, though, I do think is explained in the movie, but again, maybe a bit poorly. And I haven't read the prequel comic that you've read, that maybe this explains it a bit more. Because I don't know if it's that the powers within the world are diminishing. I think it's almost like a Blade type thing where, in Blade, when Deacon Frosty wants to move vampires onto kind of the next stage, they've been hidden in the shadows for too long. I think that's kind of the idea here, or almost kind of a Third Reich kind of situation where it's like, we need to up our power sets and now we can take over the world rather than be like within the world. And so I think it's more of that idea that they want to progress their powers so they can become more powerful and this shadowy division.
Yeah, I guess that's the other side of the equation, because in some ways I think it is good world building, and in other ways I think it's not. Like they kind of just throw out, oh, by the way, we were created by the Nazis. That was like, okay, fuck, all right.
In the opening exposition, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, we're a bit different. It's like, again, it's like X-Men, isn't it? It's like, we're different, we're born, we have to hide, we have to do this, and it's like, yep, not heard this before. But I was like, that's an interesting like nugget. That's an interesting idea, which they do expand in the comic, and not here, which kind of frustrated me. I was like, oh right, well that could have been, to look into that would be interesting. I get it would be, potentially problematic as well, but there's I guess they're trying to get away from that aspect. But again, I found that interesting. I found that, oh, okay, so it's like a superhuman science thing. That's very comic book. That's a very comic book kind of idea. But then I don't know, speaking of world building, I don't know why all of these people happen to be in Hong Kong.
I think it is mentioned again, though. I think it's about the idea of like, because the population's so high.
Right. They can hide.
It's harder for sniffers to find them, and so they can hide and kind of. It doesn't need to be Hong Kong. It could be, no, true. It could be somewhere in India or something. Like a highly densely populated area is easier for them to be hidden from division.
Yeah. But it also seemed like we met all of them, and then by the third act they're all mates and they're all in the same room.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but they're all kind of outcasts, aren't they? So the Cliff
Sure.
Curtis character, he's been sacked by Division, and I can't think of the guy's name, but the shadow guy, again, he's been binned off by Division and stuff. They're like haven't been deemed good enough to be in this like dodgy group. Division, by the way, are totally the Jedi, right? You are a child with power. I'm going to take you and I'm going to train you up in my ways. It really stood out to me. I was like, shit, Jedi are not the good guys.
No.
Division are not the good guys. Sorry, Mike. Yeah, so I think that's why. And, you know, Hong Kong, it's got some really good... we're going to talk about it. I mean, it looks brilliant on screen.
Yeah. I have to agree with that. I do think it's shot very well. I think the cinematography, the kind of, even the kind of 2000s kind of color filter it has on it.
Like the mise en scène and the framing is beautiful at times. It's so good.
Yeah. Something like that. I don't necessarily agree with the name Bleeders for these guys with these powers, because I don't think I can call them anything else and that would kind of work. But Bleeders seems to be the term they used.
Yeah, they're like who's the guy in the Inhumans? They're like a banshee from
Black Bolt, yeah.
Black Bolt in Inhumans.
Yeah,
like, he's got scream loud, don't they? And
yeah, exactly. They make this thing, and it makes your ears bleed. So that's where the name comes from. But I kind of think, why would you not call them screamers or like screechers, or something that involves the noise that they're making? But that moment where the fish are exploding and all the tanks, it looks great. So yeah, I agree. I think that's the best thing about it, is the way it's shot, the way it looks.
Probably have to sell it to a Chinese audience too, right? Oh, it's in Hong Kong. So here's this big market.
There you go.
We can promote this film too.
Here we go. And again, it does have a lot of Chinese actors. Again, it's got a lot of diversity in the cast members and everything. But also, I do think some of the characters are pretty much just defined by their power. I think Ming-Na Wen's character is... I don't know anything about her. I couldn't tell you anything about her other than her power, and that she's in some kind of tea house or something, or wherever she's based. And again, the guy who can is it shift? They say shift?
Yeah.
He can change the way things appear. So he can change the color of a bit of paper into money, or he can change a suitcase's color, things like that. Again, other than his dead wife, I don't know much about him, and I don't know why they all kind of sort of know. If they're all trying not to be detected, why are they all getting together in one location, and then not, if they're trying to not be detected, they should be off and about doing their own thing. But they seem to be together a lot.
Nick doesn't know. Nick knows the Shifter, doesn't he? He knows Cliff Curtis's character. He doesn't know Ming-Na Wen until this movie. And I guess by the end, it's that kind of like, it's just a team up, isn't it? We all hate Division, and they're the bad guys. And if this is our one window to try and take them down, it's worth the risk. But also, like, you do get Ming-Na Wen's character saying, like, go away. I don't want to be involved. You're going to get me in trouble a couple of times. So I do agree. Some of them are a little bit thin on character development, but in a 100-minute movie, which is all this is, I guess some people are unfortunately going to suffer a little bit. It's very much Nick and Cassie's story, kind of with a little bit of Kira in it, with the Pusher, who is Nick's ex-girlfriend and who kind of comes back into the fold. So, but I mean, can we not level the same at, the initial, if we're going to compare the X-Men to Push, I guess we compare it to the first X-Men movie, right? And like Wolverine's a main character, Rogue's a main character. But if you haven't read the comics, that first X-Men movie, Cyclops just turns up and blasts things, which we know Cyclops has done dirty in the majority of those initial movies, to be fair.
Even Storm, to a degree, you could argue. There's not much. She's got an accent.
Yeah, and she has a really shit line about what happens to the frogs' toes that get struck by lightning.
Yeah, well, you know to thank for that line, don't you? Your old friend.
We won't talk about him. No, we're not allowed to. I agree. These are all fair criticisms, but I don't know if they're not criticisms you can't level at similar movies too. And I think this moves at a clip. I think it's got really good pace to it. I know I'm going to immediately contradict myself in terms of the fact that there's a lot of talking in it. There's not a lot of action. But I think, it starts on this day and it ends on this day. And it progresses quite quickly through those moments. I think there is an urgency to what they're doing, because obviously Kira's got this drug in her and she needs to either be saved or has to get the next level of the drug or the medicine or whatever it is they need to do to save us. That adds the urgency to it. But also the fact that, the Sniffers and the Watchers are now on their tail. So, although it's got passages of talking and passages of people walking in slow motion, looking cool in cool sets. Yeah, I do feel like it has an urgency, has a driving force to get.
I'd agree. I'd agree. There is like I was. I don't want to say I was never bored because there were moments I was bored, but no, I agree with that. I think there is. It keeps ticking over. There's something going on. There was always something happening, but I also felt that there was some moments where I did need a breather. Or I needed kind of like a moment where I could just be like, "What the fuck is going on?" Because I think as well, because it moves at a clip, we don't have that much of an opportunity to learn much about the characters again, which is the issue, which is I don't know much about the characters, so they're limited to just their power and that's it kind of thing. I don't think it's it's not high on laughs. I could have done with like a few jokes or something. I didn't.
It's a little bit of banter between Nick and Cassie.
Yeah, and again, like I feel like Chris Evans is quite a charming guy, and he can do the comedy when he needs to. But there's something about this where it's like it feels a bit like dour, like and also that I think a lot of the performances feel really low energy. I did get a vibe of Fan Stick about it. I don't feel
that is harsh.
I know, but I don't feel as strong. I don't feel as strongly against this as I do against Fan Stick because I have a vested interest in those characters. But there is a feeling of I'm like he's just. It feels like this is the first take, and he's just going like, "I've got to go here."
Well, that is interesting, isn't it? Because some of these are first takes because of the guerrilla style.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I read that, I was like, that makes a bit more sense now. Why some of these would be like, it's a one take wonder. We've just got to say it, do it, go. And there is kind of almost like there's a sternness to I think him and Cassie specifically, those two characters. There's like and I think that's maybe them just concentrating and making sure they don't like mess up the shot or mess up the take or what have you. I don't know, but it seems like they're rushing and I also don't think they're listening to each other as actors as well a little bit. They're almost like I don't know. There's just something a little off about the performances and the chemistry, and
that's really interesting because I don't feel that at all. I think some of that stuff you said is fair. I think that Chris Evans's character Nick is in a place where he's hiding from the world. He's isolated, he's alone. So I get that he's kind of down. I hear you. Yeah. It's a shame to suppress his natural charisma and chemistry. Yeah. Cassie is there because she's had a premonition that she and Nick are going to die. So I guess it kind of makes sense. They're both feeling a little bit.
Yeah, true.
I think they work well together. I like it. I think I think you get by the end. I think the hug that she gives Nick is an earned kind of like big brother moment. I buy into it, but again, maybe this is because I'm invested in the world and I like it and I've watched it a lot. But by the end,
you need to tell us whose side are we on? Which side does everyone take? Because
I think the moments of like they're not levity, but the moments where she's kind of teasing him a little bit, and she's almost kind of too quick for him already at the age that she's at, which is that kind of precocious Dakota Fanning stuff that she was so good at. I think they work quite well. It's not quite Shane Black-esque buddy banter, but I think we're in a similar world where there's kind of a little bit of backwards and forwards between them. But I hear you that there is a little bit kind of. I guess we're in like a post-Bourne Casino Royale action movie world at this point. This is 2009. So what? We've had all the Bournes, I think, by now.
I think so. Yeah.
2007 maybe is the last one. Casino Royale is 2006. Batman Begins is 2006 as well. Yeah. Dark Knight is 2008. So we are in this kind of serious. That I get you. I get what you're saying. I mean, I wouldn't call it down, but I think it's fair for you to say that we're in this kind of serious mold of sci-fi action at the moment. I think it's just of a piece of what is coming out. But also I think, the MCU by and large is really good at doing that quippiness around kind of serious stuff at times. I don't know, some people don't
mass
like
murder.
Yeah. I don't think it would have fit this movie. I know Chris Evans can do it and he has done it and he is good at it, but I don't think this is that kind of movie, really. So I don't know. I think it's a fair criticism, and I can understand why for you it was leaning too much on the dour serious side. But I think it's of a piece of kind of what was coming out at that time, and I do think it's kind of what the film is aiming for. I think if we ever got a sequel, or there was going to be a rumored TV series that span out of it, I don't know how you would never would have got Chris Evans for that, but maybe that would have started to lighten things a little bit because this first mission has been a success. Spoiler, everybody, the good guys come out on top.
Yay.
So maybe it would have got a bit lighter because they're sort of now they know each other and they're moving into a world where they're kind of reclaiming themselves and their powers and their place in it. It might have been able to do that a little bit.
I think another thing I don't like in general are kind of films that are like fetch quests, and I'm contradicting myself saying
the MacGuffin kind of idea.
Yeah, a little bit. So I think it's not necessarily the MacGuffin thing because Marvel does that all the time. I'm a bit sick of that as well. But I think it's like like Pirates of the Caribbean where they have the coin, then somebody else has the coin, but they didn't have the coin. Somebody else still has the coin. And then that person has the coin, but they've swapped it with a fake coin, and now we don't know which coin it is. But the one person's had the third coin, and it's kind of like we have to follow where this coin is. And I think as much as I enjoy Pirates of the Caribbean, I've not seen all of them. I don't even think I've seen the third one or any of the ones after that. But there's something about that where I find it a bit like I have to kind of keep up and like and I'm like what, and I find it maybe confusing as well. And I think there's a little bit of that here with the suitcase, like who has the suitcase, which suitcases they have, what is in that particular suitcase.
And even when you have the suitcase, is it the thing that's
exactly isn't there? And I think I always find that a bit, and especially when they're really like there's so many twists, and I'm just like, oh fucking hell! It's exhausting just trying to keep up with where the story is. Like some people, I'm sure will find it entertaining, and I realize as well that he directed Lucky Number 11 as well.
Yes,
which is another film that's a bit like that. Again, not one I enjoyed particularly, but I have enjoyed films that it's Paul McGowan, isn't it? Paul McGowan. I have enjoyed films he's done. I love Gangster Number 1 with Paul Bettany. And I really liked his Victor Frankenstein he did. Again, that absolutely will not be for everybody, much like many other films. But I really got a kick out of that one.
Is that McAvoy in that?
Yeah. Daniel Radcliffe and McAvoy. So yeah, I did a Frankenstein double bill with that and 1986 The Bride. It's on my Clone Wars list on Letterboxd if you want to read my 2 reviews comparing the 2. But yes, I think it came out on top if I remember rightly. But you'll have to read the reviews. But yeah, I like the director's work. Some of it doesn't hit for me. Some of it does. And yeah, I think there's a little bit of Lucky Number 11 in the DNA here. And again, it is trying to, like you said, be a really, 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 really grounded version of these kind of superhero films. And he says about not using much CGI, but also I think the budget is not helping the film because I think if you're going to do these massive posters showing some epic carnage and stuff, you're selling me on that. You're selling me on this image, so you need to deliver on it. And then when we get to the finale, which has a little bit of like, and stuff happening. And again, I love all the physical. Again, I know they're not using a lot of CGI. The minimal CGI, I think, is a good thing. But when we get to that point, I feel like I was kind of like I was done. It was kind of too little, too late. And even then, when I was there, I was kind of like, this isn't quite what I expected or wanted. But again, that could be my expectations coming in. I'm trying to remember when I turned it off.
That's interesting.
I feel like I turned it off after the when they go into the restaurant and have the gun. He has the guns in the ceiling.
Yeah.
I feel like I turned it off after that or some point after, but I remember more, so I feel like it might have been later even then.
Yeah, because there's only really 3 main action scenes, isn't there? There's the fish market against the bleeders. There's the mover off with Victor, No Line's Victor and Nick in the restaurant, and then there's the end scene, really, isn't there? The rest is kind of walk and talk, a montage, and in rooms making plans, and So maybe that's what happened. Maybe you watch that scene, and that's a bit of a pickup point. If you're doing like your interestometer, it picks up a little bit there because I think that scene's really cool. I think the idea of him floating the guns up to the ceiling, he thinks is a really original move.
Yeah,
and then of course the 2 guys who are experienced are like, and we've seen this before. Like this is nothing, but to Nick, this is like, whoa, this is so clever. And I think there's some really nice touches in that scene. I really like it when he's getting challenged. What's the main pusher guy's name? I can't think what his character name is.
Carver, or Mr.
Yes,
Hobbs.
yeah, Henry. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yes, let's not have me embarrassing
Try and pronounce
myself
his
by
name.
constantly trying to mispronounce.
I'm nervous about pronouncing it after your podcast, so maybe I'll just call him Carver.
So, and again, I think he's great in this because he has
he's great.
that sense of gravitas and sense of presence. He's like challenging Nick. I really like this scene. Emotionally, he's talking about Kira and his dad, and the gun starts shaking. It's a really nice touch. I know it's a simple thing, but I think it really sells you on the moment. And then as Victor starts turning the guns against Nick again, you start to see that challenge of mover versus mover, and Victor turns them now towards Nick, which you could have done all along anyway. And you see Nick like kind of really trying to like move. I was going to say push, but that's the wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
To move them back. Yeah, I think the little touches like that are what I think of when I talk about world building. Yeah, the cinematography and the mise en scène is beautiful. Like Hong Kong looks.
I did like the wire work in that scene as well when Nick's on the ceiling and he's being flung around. I thought that was really cool as well. So I will give it that. But I do think those scenes were too far. There's. I feel like he talks. I watched the documentary on the DVD, and he says like, "Oh, I really want to, ground it in character and make these characters come to life." And I was like, they don't really do that for me. I kind of wanted a bit more of because you seem to be selling it on the superpowers more so than the characters and what they're going through. I wanted to like it because again, I want to like every film I watch, and I did go in with an open mind. I went, I have turned this off, but let's see, give it a chance, But I think I felt the same feeling I did the last time I watched it. I kind of felt the same, like meh, and I think that's unfortunately how I would describe it. It's a bit meh. I think the idea has legs. It works. It's interesting. It clearly works in the comic because it doesn't work here for me. So I don't know if maybe
we're back to a budget thing.
Yeah,
if it had more of a budget, and it could have made that poster a reality. Perhaps that would have helped a little bit. Obviously, not having read the comic, I don't know that maybe.
Yeah, maybe there's they could have done things in a different way, or again, they're clearly like. I like the drawings. I like the aspect that the watchers have to draw and not very good at drawing, and they have to kind of interpret what that is. I think that's a good idea, good visual kind of language for that. I think some of the other powers could have, they could have displayed them a bit differently. Like the shadow guy is just like, I'm just stood here. Great, very exciting. Gripping.
I hear you, but if you're gonna have any power, the one which means you can just kind of chill and just already you're a cool guy.
True.
I quite like it.
True.
I know what you meant. Like,
I just think
you have to be within 20 meters, don't you? I think.
Yeah, I was like, you're just a guy who walks around and that's it, and you can, and yeah, like this. And again, I quite like the guy who erases the memories. I like him I like him having the long nails and him being like he's in an opium den or something. I thought that was kind of a cool aspect, and I'm kind of glad he turned up again. I was like, oh, that's interesting. He was from earlier, and I was like, okay, now I see it. And we have the Sniffers as well.
Not the power I would want. Rank.
Absolutely disgusting.
So they have to literally like tactile.
Yeah, it's like I think they call really it like psych. Yeah, right. Really get up in there. And again, the two Sniffers they introduce like
psychometric, isn't it?
That was it, psychometry or whatever they call it. Yeah, like a long shot from X-Men has that ability. He can do that. And yeah, so I had to kind of figure it out for myself. I was like, okay, so Sniffers do the same thing as Watchers, and then I went, oh no, Sniffers see the past and Watchers see the future. That's how I kind of rationalized it in my brain.
Yeah, they can kind of track by touching and smelling the tactile objects. They can kind of track back the history of how that's been used, can't they?
Yeah.
Which I guess kind of makes sense.
I don't know what I don't
there's
like
a kind of tactile nature to the history, but
like you could have called them. You could have called them like touchers or feelers. I don't know if that's any less creepy. Any less creepy than Sniffers.
More creepy. Definitely more creepy. If you had a choice, Dan, you've got the power right now.
Okay,
and you've got a choice. Here's, this is the power. It's newly discovered. You're the first ever. Would you like to be a sniffer or a toucher? I think Would you like to be a sniffer or a feeler?
True. Yeah. Okay. You got a point.
It's all a gross power.
Yeah.
It's rank. Like getting the toothbrush and getting like right up in the nostril. Like, I'm keeping this one.
Yeah, it was And again, like I think because
It's
Ming-Na
Corey Stoll.
from
Ming-Na Wen.
from Ant-Man. Yeah, Ming-Na Wen has the same power, but she's like obviously a beautiful woman. So when she does, it's quite nice. But when the blokes do it, they're like getting that toothbrush right up their fucking nose, jamming it up there, having a good old root. Yeah, but I do think the push power is interesting. I like the use of that. And it's like, oh, you've always he killed your brother. It's like, I don't have a brother, and then eventually he's kind of like convinced.
It's like Inception kind of.
Yeah,
thing,
basically, yeah. But yeah,
I think what's also interesting is that they don't always. So like with the push power and like with the shifter, it's not permanent. I think it's quite an interesting take on it is that because when she pushes Corey Stoll's sniffer, like you were saying about the brother, he then kind of comes out of the trance of her push later. So again, I think that's quite interesting that you sort of use it in the moment for what you need, but it won't always. Yeah, you haven't changed their brain chemistry forever as such.
No, yeah, it's kind of again. I think that's an interesting thing that's limited. But I don't know if maybe
which is what they want this serum for, right? To make it stronger, because then once Kira's powered up and she's like, I love that scene when they're up in the building and she's got like the guys surrounding her, the army. She's like shifting them left and right as a little personal kind of computer game army. I think it's kind of cool. Yeah. So it does show like she's leveled up here.
I'm trying,
Dan. I'm trying.
I know, mate. And I love you for it. I love you for it. It's a film. Again, I'd love to hear what people think. We do have one comment. You know who it is. It's Derek. He's got a comment for us. He's got a comment for us. Nobody else has responded from my clarion call for feelings on this.
Maybe that says a lot about how underseen it is. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
It sort of did okay when it came out. It made its money back, and I think it did quite well on DVD. But it's not like a widely known movie. I don't think it's not a widely seen or celebrated. Certainly not a celebrated movie.
No, I think people will look back and go, "How many superheroes has Chris Evans played? Oh, here's one here." I think they'll pick that out.
Certainly, like you said, comic book characters between like the Losers and this.
Yeah.
Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, the Losers I do like. I did like the Losers. I enjoyed that. So it's not all Chris Evans things that I don't like. I even like the Fantastic Four films he's in, and they're not great.
They're better than Fan Four Stick, though, right?
They are. Like, I'll be honest, pretty much anything on the planet. Pretty much anything on the planet is better than Fan Four Stick, and yeah, just awful. And again, my friend Dan Keatis, he was like, "Oh no, it really works for me," and I was like, no, Dan, I'm sorry. I can't agree on any level. It's like, oh no, but this and that. And I thought the idea of it being like a body horror Fantastic Four was interesting because I read a comic not dissimilar to that. It kind of played with the origin a little bit. And I thought that's an interesting kind of Cronenbergian idea. But yeah, that's a fucking shit show.
I thought that's an interesting point in this movie as well. Like when the healer comes in, so Nick gets absolutely, again, I quite like the idea that Nick is this classic underdog character and he gets absolutely whooped twice.
Yeah.
By the triad bleeders and by Victor Move, he gets absolutely annihilated by them both. So he does that kind of classic, like having to overcome and find his way. That's we've seen that a million times.
I'm with you on that. Well. I'm with you on that. Yeah, it's the Captain Kirk in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. He never wins a fight in that film. He's constantly getting fucking his ass kicked, and he's like, "I'm going to be the captain. Shut up!" Just absolutely getting pummeled by everybody, heroes and villains in that film. But yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think he is that kind of. But I do think that he needed some moments where he was actually good at shit as well. like I do think there should have been like one where he's like, "Oh, I did it," or by the skin of his teeth, he did it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know if he ever really gets that. Because even at the end, it's kind of a bit, again, we have the moment where he's going to inject himself and you think, oh shit, here we go. They're going to put all the budget into this moment. And he's like, just die.
But it's his, he gets it as in like, it's his plan.
Yeah, no, you're right.
No, I was going to say, I like the bit when he's healed. I think that's really cool that in a kind of
Stitcher,
American Werewolf style, like he looks, even though he's being healed, it's really painful. And that kind of makes sense to me that rapid healing would hurt because you're manipulating the muscles and the bruises and the pain in the body. My main criticism of the movie is I don't then understand why later that Stitcher has such a vendetta against him and Cassie.
I was going to mention this. Yeah, she was like, and I watched some deleted scenes with her in it. they're not they don't really say anything about that
No.
because she's like, oh, Cassie's mum told me to come and help you, and I'm helping you now. See you later.
And she gets paid for it.
And she gets paid for it as well. And
Yeah.
she goes off, and then there is some deleted scenes with her communicating with the young girl in the Triad gang.
With Pop Girl, yeah.
Yeah. So she kind of hires her to do it and what have you, and she goes, and that's where the line where she goes, oh no, he said she promised he'd die slowly.
Yeah, because the bleeders are going to kill Nick. Yeah.
So she's going to take away all the healing she's done, and he's going to be in the same state.
Yeah, because they can reverse their power.
So they can give the healing and they can take it away, which again is an interesting idea. But I was like, but why? Who?
Yeah, I don't. That is poorly written.
Why do you care? Just get it and leave. Why does he have to die slowly? Why can he die quickly? And again, I think it's probably just a plot contrivance thing where it's like we need this to happen to do this, to do that.
Oh, for sure. But that certainly was a area that is a hole that stands out that needs to be, whether you say it's been cut out or at script level. I don't know. We need more explanation for why she is.
We've talked about before. I think we've talked about before where throwing a line in would help, but this is like throw the line out would actually help in this situation, like because it doesn't add anything, doesn't mean anything. We don't know, they don't have an established relationship. We know he doesn't know him, she doesn't know him, so what does it serve? Nothing.
Yeah, I guess it's just that he'd be dead because the bleeders they want to kill him. So we need that to be stopped, but we needed it to be something else. You're right. I don't get that moment at all. It doesn't work, which is a shame because it's a scene which is kind of pivotal because it's part of Nick's plan, but it really jolts you out of the movie at that point.
Yeah. I will say one thing I did like. I like the idea of the way they figure out how not to be watched by the young girl from the Triad gang. They go, right, it's about intention. So if we don't have any intentions or know what we're doing, then we can't be seen. We can't be viewed by a watcher. So how do we not have intention? How do we know an unknowable plan? So he writes letters to everybody with the plan, and nobody has to open them until the right moment. And then he goes to get his mind wiped and writes a letter to himself, and that will kind of unlock the plan. And again, that feels a very, very lucky number 11 as well, that moment. But it kind of works for me because it's quite an interesting way. We talked about Ed TV where the ending just kind of came out of the blue and didn't really make sense. But this kind of makes sense in the world they've created and the logic they've made. So that was a kind of an interesting idea that how they worked out how the power worked and then they worked out a way to counteract it. I thought was quite clever.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that then helps. You mentioned the ending before about it feeling a bit anticlimactic. And I think that's probably fair to say because kind of the main bleeder Triad guy kind of brings about his own demise, doesn't he? Like Nick fakes his own death by injecting himself with soy sauce rather than the power. And But again, I guess that's where it reminds me of the kind of Charlemagne superhero trilogy. Because all of those kind of, particularly Glass, which I know got some really vehement, like kind of vitriolic reactions when it came out, but I really quite like the kind of underplayed nature of those movies. I am first in line to criticize Chalamet when he makes that happening because that movie is shit. But I think there in that trilogy is conscious choice to kind of underplay and to not to go against the expected, to do the unexpected. And I guess maybe here's a little bit of that going on as well, which is but that again, maybe that's the same thing. If you're going to promote yourself as having a big action scene and you don't provide it, that is a problem. But I think to kind of go against the grain and do something a bit unexpected, I think is quite interesting because Nick probably can't beat them at their own game, so he has to do the unexpected thing, which is to inject himself with soy sauce, which is gross.
I definitely wouldn't do that. There's a lot of things I wouldn't put in my veins, but I think soy sauce is on that list somewhere. But yeah, I probably would die. I think I might die if that would happen to me. But yeah, I think I know what you mean. It is trying to subvert those expectations a little bit from the superhero genre because we do expect it to be kind of hyperbolic and grandiose and larger than life because these characters are larger than life. I remember when they were creating when they were making Daredevil 2003, the Ben Affleck one,
another underrated superhero movie.
Yes, I agree. I agree massively, especially the director's cuts, which again, very underseen. I think that has a lot of style to it, and again, is very underrated. But the executives, who again, this was the same studio that made X-Men, they got to the end, and obviously it's Daredevil versus the Kingpin. You know, it's a guy in a devil suit punching a fat guy or a muscular fat guy, and they said, "Oh no, it needs to be like X-Men." So they're kind of fucking with their kind of superhero film and expecting it to be like, no, it needs to be bigger and larger. Like it needs to be Statue of Liberty, kind of this thing, and energy waves and stuff. And he was like, no, he's just going to slide under him and kick him in the knees. That's all he's going to do. And eventually, that's what they did, and they stuck to their guns and they did it. And I love that moment. I love it. He just slides in the water and he just kicks his knees, falls on his knees. You hear the knees crack when he lands on the floor. Brilliant. But and again, I think they could have easily, had them fucking hanging off the Empire State Building or something, and it would not have fit that film. Even though that film is not particularly a grounded version of that character.
No, not when Bullseye and Daredevil are bouncing around the biggest organ you've ever seen. No.
No. However, there's a lot more style than substance, I would say, in that film, but I still appreciate it for what it is. But I can see what you mean. I can see the idea of, I think the studio probably wanted to promote it as a big superhero film.
Of course, yeah.
Because that was what was big, and Chris Evans is coming off various kind of superhero films and stuff and comic book movies. So maybe that's the disconnect, is that Paul McGowan wanted to make something that's a bit, and I think maybe if they leaned into the heist element more, I might have liked it a bit more, because they spend more time just kind of walking around Hong Kong looking for people, going, "Oh, go here, we'll do this. Where are we supposed to go now?" And there's so much repetitive dialogue as well. Like, fucking hell, like I must have heard the same phrases and words and sentences over and over and over. And again, it's the whole kind of the mundanity of the kind of fetch quest, and the kind of, it feels like it's a job that I have to find it almost, which I think is kind of frustrating. But the idea of like superpowered individuals pulling off a heist is kind of more interesting, which again is what Ant-Man became, and that works for me as a superhero heist movie. That works, where this, again, if it had that element, or if it really pushed it, which again we've got the star of Ant-Man in this as well, which is probably why I'm making those connections. So I don't know, I just I wanted to like it. I wanted to be like, right, here we go, Jack's picked a banger. But
it's interesting. I think no matter what we do, I think we're going to fall in these two camps, aren't we? I think we're coming at it from two different perspectives, and this isn't me criticizing you in any way.
No.
But I guess I'm watching it for the film it intended to be, flaws and all, and you're watching it with a weight of expectation and a wealth of knowledge.
Well, the studio wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Well, they promoted it to be.
So you're not getting what you expect, and that's always going to be problematic in terms of your experience of it. I guess, I went in knowing next to nothing the first time I saw it back in the day when it first came out. So perhaps I've got that happy memory that I've kept with me all the way through, and so I'm sort of going along with what it is.
I get that. I think people can sometimes get in their own way. I think when you come in with expectations to something. So I can definitely see that. But I don't know. I was hoping, because I had turned it off before, and because I had some poor memory of it, I was like, right, it's going to turn me around. It's going to absolutely surprise me, and it's going to, my perspective is massively going to change on this viewing. I almost, again, set myself up for failure, really, to a degree, by doing that. But I was like, if Jack likes it, it must be a banger. He's got good taste, But in this occasion, on this one occasion, we haven't, our minds have not melded in the way that many of the other characters do in this film. I also wasn't a big fan of the kind of Kira, the femme fatale thing, and
she's the weak link in terms of the main cast.
Yeah, absolutely. And
she was a big thing around this time, Camilla Bell. She was she was in like 10,000 BC and When a Stranger Calls remake, and I think she was somebody that clearly was being pushed See what I did there?
I see.
But yeah, she doesn't really have the same screen presence as those around her. I certainly don't buy that her and Hounsou would be like any kind of dynamic duo
No.
or any kind of. I mean, I think it's very clear in the movie that he has pushed her to his new worldview rather than what is the truth.
Yeah.
I think. But and then so she is of the belief that her and him are always partners. I think the film sort of wants to toy with the idea of that. Is that true or is that not true? But I think everyone probably believes the original thought of her being with Nick and they're being captured by Division and all that kind of stuff is probably true. But yeah, she doesn't say a lot, to be fair.
No.
But maybe that is in the edit. I don't know, because yeah, she isn't as strong as the people she's performing against on screen.
Yeah, even Victor, our silent, he's really going for it. Like he doesn't have many lines, but you remember him and you feel his presence and his kind of, psychic powers and him, using them and his intensity. Say what you will, about the amount of dialogue and stuff he has. And I don't know anything about him, but I know he's a cold-blooded killer and he knows how to do it, which is all I really need to know about that character.
Yeah, he's like a Bond henchman.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's classic Bond henchman, and he's a brute and he can do it, and he's good at all that, and he's everything that Nick isn't, but also bad as well. So yeah, and yeah, but even this kind of very lame kind of femme fatale twist thing. I was like, I don't believe this. Like again. Carver, Mr. Honshu is absolutely delivering that dialogue and that monologue, but even I was like, no, I don't buy it. I don't think it's going to be this. I don't think it's going to be. It would be interesting, but I don't think they're going to do it in this kind of film. And again, I feel like the love story was really tacked on anyway. I just feel like it was like I didn't particularly care for where she's getting changed and Chris Evans keeps leering through the door. I thought that had not aged well.
It feels kind of like Terminator-y.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's almost like he's getting really, really horny, and he's about to kick the door in, and then she makes him kick the door in because
she pushes him. Yeah,
she pushes him to think it's on fire, and he's like, "Oh wait, why is it not on fire?" And he's in there.
Fair, he waited to be.
Yeah, but it was like
he waited for her consent.
He did, but he was like prowling like a panther, like this little crack in the door. And the other guy's like, I'm getting out of here, but I don't know if maybe he should have stayed. Maybe. But
I like how he keeps saying like things like, what did he say to him? He says like, I'll leave Hero. I can see where this is going. I quite like how he keeps kind of calling that out.
Yeah,
and he's like calling her a princess, and he's like, I like how he's kind of pushing them as like the lead characters. I think that's quite a fun little. Yeah, it's. I agree with you. I think the relationship is kind of there because they need to have it more than anything else, and it probably would have been better with somebody with a bit more charisma, with it that's matching up to Chris Evans's level. But yeah, like I say, she just seemed to be a thing around this time. I don't know where she's gone since.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a very attractive young woman. I kind of get being attracted to her, but as she's such a pivotal character. It's a shame that she's kind of the weaker link of the movie. It does hurt it a bit.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, yeah, I don't know if maybe you would, if anybody else could have done any better necessarily. I don't think there's much on the written page for her necessarily. Again, I do like the moments where she is pushing people, like you said, she's using her abilities, and that's a good kind of way of. I think that power is presented in a really interesting way. And
I think
again,
the character requires the actress to show a gamut, though, doesn't it? They need to be vulnerable at the start,
yeah,
and then they need to be kind of self-possessed and powerful at the end. So I think, depending on who it was, I think there was scope for this to be a more, you mentioned femme fatale. I think that's an interesting take on what this character could have been. So, I think that she would have been too old, but think of a younger Angelina Jolie doing a role like this. I think she would have come out with more presence, with a more interesting character that you would understood why Nick would risk everything for. I don't want to lay shit at somebody's.
No, I don't think it's.
I think she's fine, but I think somebody with a deeper level of talent probably would have been able to do a bit more with that character.
No, I agree. I don't think the film does not fail due to her alone. I think that she's one of
the film doesn't fail, Dan.
For me, but yeah, I get what you mean. It's not. I wouldn't go right. She ruined the film or something like that. I wouldn't say anything like that. I think there's maybe again, it might not even been the director's choice. They might have said we have to have her in it. She has to play this character. Might have been something else. Again, we don't know the ins and outs of.
Somebody like Dushku as Faith.
Yeah.
In Buffy.
Oh, great. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like she can do another person who had a career ruined, unfortunately, but she should have been a megastar, but she could do the full gamut. She was a badass and scary, but sexy, but vulnerable when she needed to be, and a sister when she needed to be. Like, Dushku had it all. She should have been a megastar, and I think somebody with that kind of level of talent in this role, I think would have brought more to it.
Another thing that didn't quite,
Go on, give it to me. I'm gonna
Here we go.
Move it back to you.
Go on, just
I'm
serve
putting
it
up
back.
the force fields.
All right, here we go. Why don't they show Division being brought down? Why do they leave it there? Like, why? How are they going to bring it down? Who do they take it to? If it's a branch of the government, they can't go to the government. Where do they go with this? Is it worth as much as Cassie's making out? I felt like it was really unfinished. I imagine maybe there was plans for a sequel and other stuff, perhaps. But yeah, I just felt like I did feel like it was a bit of a wet fart at the ending and the twist and the reveal. I did feel like, and again, this is me probably expecting the big bombastic. He injects himself, does the thing. But yeah, I did feel a bit like,
it's interesting. I think you're right, and it's all about sequel setup or spin-off potential, isn't it? I guess I don't know. It's interesting because we spoke about the urgency and the need to we start at this point and the story is already going. Again, another thing I like about these kind of stories is like there's this whole world that's already out there and exists, and we don't need to. If we want to, we can go into that later. But right now, this is our story. We're looking at this segment. I think I quite like those kind of stories. Yeah, it's interesting because I think you don't get a sense of is this Division, and they are like super bad guys, and they are back wherever home base is, because they sort of talk about division. There being divisions all around the world.
Yes,
but are they united? Is this a rogue division? Is this just actually Houndsoo's Carver who's going a bit rogue and doing this by himself without Division's permission? I guess we could have gone into that a bit more, but that would have really slowed the pace. That would have really pumped the brakes on what this kind of story is. I think it's kind of problematic that they send these sniffers to find Kira, and then 2 seconds later, Carver's in Hong Kong as well. I was like,
don't they go? They go back to the States with her, don't they? Am I right?
No, I don't think so.
Because she said, "Oh, we've been because Carver says something about we've been chasing you from here to there, like from the States to here." I'm sure he says that, and I think when she's using the push power in the toilet,
that's definitely Hong Kong.
Is that still Hong Kong? I thought I saw like I don't know. I thought I saw something in the States, but I could be wrong. But yeah, again, I might have checked out at certain points of this film.
No, I think that's still Hong Kong, because that's like timelines don't quite work there. That
exactly. That's why I thought it was weird.
And Houndsoo's there,
and then the back. It wouldn't have made sense. But that was again another thing I could have pulled up if that was the problem.
There are definitely questions being asked about the Division, but maybe again, I think they probably want you to be asking those questions. They want it to be open, and I think it's more interesting that he's kind of a rogue element within it. It makes me think a little bit of kind of like. Did you ever watch Alias?
Not much, no.
So ST6 is kind of like the bad guy spy network that Sid finds out she's working for, and she thinks it's a really small niche little thing. It's a brilliant moment in one of the episodes really early on where she's like, I'm going to like really self-possessed, like I'm going to draw out for you how easy this is going to be now I'm like a double agent. And she draws like a map that's got like 9 things on it, like a mind map type thing, and then Vaughn, her kind of new handler, gets out this map, and it's like, and bigger, and bigger, and bigger, and it's like it spirals out across the world. I think perhaps we could have had a scene like that here, where like he's a small part of Division, and it's a bigger deal, and you can see the links of how they all work. But I think it was just a pacing thing, wasn't it? A backstory thing that they were probably saving, feeling like this is going to go somewhere, and we're going to get sequels, and we're going to be able to expand that world out.
Yeah. Again, like you were saying about urgency, though, we get to the end and it kind of just drops all that urgency. Like it's kind of like, bleh. Again, like he dies, we get the stuff, he gets the drug, and they just walk off. It's kind of like, Again, I don't know what I expected, but I kind of expected a bit more of a an ending, or something.
Well, that's your fault for your expectations, Sam. I think we've covered that very
It's
well.
all me. It's my problem.
No, it's totally fair. But I think, again, that's that they're trying to be a little bit subversive, aren't they?
Yes.
They're trying to be a little bit different.
Yeah, and again, it's probably the lightest moment, but there is some fucking awful ADR right at the end. I don't know if you saw that towards the end, and they're walking away, and they put some dialogue at the end behind the back of their heads. That was dreadful. I was like, oof.
It always makes me think. I've always I find that kind of ADR really funny because I love the Karate Kid. I know a lot of people do, but there's a scene in the Karate Kid when Ali and Daniel have been on their date at golf and stuff. And then they're getting in the car and they're driving away. Oh, actually, no, I think it's after they've had the route. Anyway, Daniel and Ali are getting in his new car and they're driving after his 18th birthday. And they're talking as if they're like right next to you. But they're in a car and it's driving. And like, it's that kind of like, they've not really thought through
it doesn't really
where in
right.
the world this ADR should fit. I hear what you're saying, but it almost has become like a trope in itself now where like.
True. I mean, if you've seen Madam Web, that's just fucking awful ADR all the way through.
I have not, and I will not be watching that movie.
Fair enough. I will say about Madam Web, if you go in and you watch it with friends and you got maybe a few drinks, you can have a lot of fun with it.
Okay, well, sadly, I don't have any friends, so...
Oh, poor you. You don't watch Madam Web. Fucking hell. Awful. Like, even when they announced it, like, I'm a big Spider-Man fan. I know the character. I'm familiar with it. I know there's different versions and different takes. And the idea of having, female Spider-Women and, like, a group, that I was like, that's a cool idea. But, my God, when they were like, oh, yeah, the blind woman who has to sit on her life support chair, who's a psychic, and once you remove her from her chair, she has a seizure. We're going to make a film about her. So exciting.
Why?
Yeah, exactly. Like, the elderly woman who's, and again, I'm not saying there can't be, disabled characters in superhero roles, but I'm like, you're really like you're digging the depths of the shit you own, Sony. Like you're really trying to find some gold there, and you're not going to find it. The guy got fired as well. The guy who came up with the idea of all the different Sony villain movies, and they fired him after Craven. They were like, yeah, because they spent a billion, I think that $500 million on those. I think it was the amount they'd spent, and yeah. So, and also they could have had a Spider-Man in any of them. And there was no reason why they couldn't have a Spider-Man in any of those, or Spider-Man filtering through, a new actor playing Spider-Man, but they didn't do it. God knows why. I could talk all day about this, but I won't. What else did I not like, Jack? I'm going to tell you.
There must be some stuff you liked as well. Come on, the score, the soundtrack.
I told you. Oh God, no! The soundtrack was awful.
No, you're wrong. It's brilliant.
Really horrible 2000s. I thought the editing was a bit kind of choppy and stuff, like that kind of
Tony Scott Edgar Wright style editing.
The shaky cam stuff. I was like, again, and when I read the thing about the guerrilla style shooting, I kind of went, okay, the editing and the shaky cam, I can kind of forgive a little bit. I'll give it that, But yeah, the music was dreadful. The music choices were horrible.
We'll have to agree to disagree then.
Again, like, how many films have we talked about where we've absolutely been on the same wavelength, the same page? It was going to have to happen eventually, wasn't it?
It's true. Yeah.
At least I didn't make you watch. What were the ones you didn't like from our top 5 worst? What was it? The 8-legged freaks? Big Ass Spider. You didn't like?
Oh yeah, Big Ass Spider. You didn't make me watch it, but I did because I'm such a loyal listener.
Fair enough. I did make you watch it, so yeah. But we did. At least you didn't have to talk about it. There's that.
That's true. Yeah.
There's that benefit. But yeah. So anything else I want to mention? I saw there was a building, a sign for a shop, and it was called King Fook Jewelry.
Fantastic.
I was like, okay, that has to be in there. Someone has definitely put that in because they think it's a good dirty joke or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who doesn't want to get their jewelry from King Fook?
King Fook. I've got some fucking good jewelry.
Exactly.
I think I've mentioned everything. Again, I've mentioned the things I like. I like the way it's shot. I like the cinematography, the framing. All of that's gorgeous. It feels, like you said, Hong Kong feels lived in. But yeah, I think overall, I'm not a fan, but I can see where you're coming from. I see your argument. I see why you like it, but I think it wasn't for me personally.
No, and we spoke just for recording, didn't we? I've come down a little bit from where I initially did too,
Sure,
and I promised you I'll send you my initial review, which I dug out. I've got
please do.
I haven't got all my old reviews, unfortunately. I used to write back in around this time, from around the sort of 2000. I think my first ever review was Batman Begins, actually.
Nice.
From around 2006, for about 5-6 years, I wrote for a small scale newspaper. But it was brilliant because I get to go and see movies for free and early, and I went to kind of a cool couple of. I went to see Incredible Hulk, not premiere, but like the press the day after the premiere, and some like the King Kong and Memoirs of a Geisha and Serenity press conferences, and so some cool things came out of it. Push was one of those movies I reviewed, and I was hyped after seeing this. It's safe to say. There's some movies I look back on now. The initial Transformers, Push. There are a few which I was a bit caught up in the moment, maybe. Sure. Yeah, I do still really rate this movie. I think for me, for what it's trying to do, it holds up. I still really enjoy it. I hadn't watched it for years before this, so I had already logged it on Letterboxd back in 2017. So it'd been 7 years since I'd watched it. So it seems like every sort of 7 or 8 years I keep coming back to it. We'll see in another 7 or 8 years whether it's gone even further down in my estimations or not. But yeah, I would consider this a rewatchable, enjoyable movie.
Yeah. Fair enough. What would be your last kind of argument? What's your last bastion of why people should watch this, or why they should give it a go, in spite of all the things I've said?
Yeah, in spite is the right phrase, my friend. What would I say? I think if you want to see something familiar, yet what's the right word? It's not original. So like playing with kind of the familiar but putting its own spin on it. I think if you like this era of kind of real world grounded action movies, I think if you are a fan of the Fringe TV show, this almost feels like it could be a Fringe episode. Any like Hong Kong fans, Chris Evans has a lot of two gun play. In his hands,
bit John Woo.
There's some John Woo stuff in there. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's an amalgamation of things to enjoy. Yeah, I think a spin on a fresh spin, not an original, a fresh spin on kind of a familiar idea. And I think this stands up to half, if not more, of your beloved X-Men franchise. Films.
Yeah, films. Yeah,
films.
I could agree. I could agree with you there. Yeah, there's not the best. Again, yeah, some of them are not great. And even though I've got kind of a soft spot for X-Men 3 and Daredevil, so I can't really speak. There's moments I think I like in each of the films.
Yeah,
moments. But yeah, it's
I'm the pusher, bitch. we don't get any of that bollocks here. Actually, I don't think X-Men 3 is anywhere near as bad as people make out either.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it's
X-Men Apocalypse is as bad as you can imagine.
Again, I don't feel too badly about that, but I was on a date and I did get lucky that day, so I kind of probably don't feel as hard towards that film as maybe some others do.
So maybe if you got a bit of Pop Girl after Push, you would have been.
Whoa, slow down, sir.
You would have had a different view of this movie.
Maybe if I was doing my own pushing, I might have a different. I was like, oh, I love that film. It's great. Yeah, I loved it. It's orgasmic. What? No, wait. Yeah, absolutely. I've said this before. Like I've watched, films where I've like one day I love them, the next day I'm not so keen. I watched Nightbreed not so long ago, and I was like, I remember this being better. Like, and then I watched it again. And I'm like, oh no, it's good. It's good. Johnny
Circumstance pays a lot of
exactly, yeah.
Where you watch it, who you watch it with, as you said with Madame Web, that really does serve, I think, 50% a lot of the time, and how you can, like the first Hostel, we went to a midnight screening of that, and for a long time that was one of my best cinema experiences. Not the best films I've ever seen, but we had a great time with a full-on horror movie crowd wailing at the screen, and the film is fine. but the experience of watching the film was brilliant. So yeah, how you see it and where you see it can sometimes really change your view of a movie, can't it?
Absolutely. And you mentioned hackers as well. I watched Y2K the other day. It was still just playing at the cinema, so me and my friend Matt went to see it. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was funny, and there was a lot of references which I loved. There was references in universe to stuff around that kind of era that I liked and things, but also like the way they filmed stuff. There was a bit like a Lawnmower Man. There was definitely some references to hackers, which I wanted to point out. Towards the end, there's kind of like a hacking sequence, which is very much kind of on that line. But again, very tongue in cheek, very silly, quite especially violent in some places. But it is kind of, I miss R-rated comedies. So anytime there's one on, I kind of feel like I've got to go and support it and like just, make sure they kind of maybe bring them back, or they can be a success again, because we've not really had it for a long time. As long as they're not like fucking deeply offensive, which I don't think any of them would be nowadays without, the critique. But yes, I will not say too much about this, but I think you'll enjoy the comic. They introduce a few different more types to the different powers. So we've had the Sniffers, Watchers, Movers, Pushers, Shadows, I think, or Shader, or something like that.
Shadows,
yeah. Shifters. That was the other one. I think that was all of them in the film, if I remember rightly.
And there's Stitch and the
Wipers. The Stitcher. Sorry, Stitcher. Yeah. And then in the comic, they introduced Changers, Phasers, and Porters. So Changers can
turn... best power.
Yeah, exactly.
Teleportation. Every day.
Absolutely, and that's what they give. And then the phaser is like Kitty Pryde. You can phase through solid objects.
Second best power.
Yeah, and then Changer there's only one of them, and that's the lead character in the comic, and he can change his appearance to look like anybody, and it actually his size as well, kind of an Ant-Man thing going on as well. But I think the stuff here that I like, it's a bit more brutal, it's a bit darker, it's a bit bleaker, I think. It's a bit more violent, it's a bit more kind of blood and guts and gore. They explore, there's links to real world people and real world events, which I really dug, and again, helped with that kind of world building. And there's, again, some of the characters or relatives of the characters in this film that we do see have a much bigger role as well, which you might appreciate. Set in 1986, so quite a few years before this film, and there are links. You can see there's the watch that gets
Carver
picked
has,
up, that Carver has, that has a legacy in the comic. You can see where that comes from. I know I do complain about like prequels telling you, how did they get that watch? How did they get that watch? I need to tell that story. But it actually kind of makes kind of sense why there's this kind of history to it that the Sniffers can pick up on. So yeah, I think you'd really enjoy it. I think if you are maybe not a fan of the film, but you like a good kind of superhero, psychic, superpowered kind of adventure story with a bit of kind of, shady government stuff, espionage thing going on, set during the real kind of 1980s. There's a lot of stuff there to mine. I think if you like the film, and you will like the comic as well. But yeah, I think the comic's really, really solid. It's co-written by Mark Bernardin, who is on Fat Man on Batman, the podcast, and he's a writer in his own right, and does, I think he wrote for the Stephen King show, the Universe show that they did. I can't remember what it's called. Maine something. I think it was called Maine. Well, it's set in Maine. I know that much. Stephen King, isn't it? So it's bound to be. But yeah, he wrote the He-Man show, which Kevin Smith was involved in. The Highwayman was a series they did for DC. Him and the co-writer. So yeah, definitely check out the comic. I recommend it. I won't go too much into detail for my Patreon review. But yeah, I would definitely give that a go, because I think you can get enjoyment out of it regardless if you're a fan of this film or not.
Cool.
We do have final comments. So where will Derek fall on the film? Where do you think he's going to fall?
I think he's probably on your side, along with
negative.
the other 75% of of the universe.
Rotten Tomatoes or whoever it is. Yeah, I did look up the reviews. I was like, I see. Yeah, I see where this is going. But that is exactly why we need a defender, someone like yourself, to come on, because we want to book the mainstream and what they. I don't want to be part of the mainstream. I don't want to believe all these other.
You need to push.
Yeah, I should. I want to. I want to be a nonconformist, but for some reason I can't be. Not with this one. So Derek Esoteric, he says, "Hi Dan, my comments on Push. Felt I was missing a load of backstory, like watching, say, an episode 3 in a film franchise. Probably just me being slow. I kind of agree with you to some degree. I kind of know what he means.
No. We said that when we were, sorry to interrupt. So we were talking when we were doing the main review, the main discussion. It feels like it's dropped in, and you've just got to get on board and catch up. And no, I think that's a fair comment.
Yeah. Again, yeah.
I think you could fall on either side of the fence, though, whether you like that or not, and you want to.
Absolutely. Who are you? What are you doing here? Yeah. Or you just kind of carry on with the rolling tide.
Yeah.
He says Dakota Fanning, and speaking of Madam Web, Dakota Johnson are different people. Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew? I mean, that's twice the amount of famous people I would think would be called Dakota.
Yeah, so, fair enough. Yeah.
Do people like that state? Is that a popular? Yeah,
is it that whole where you were conceived?
Oh, could be
notion, maybe
like a Brooklyn or a Paris or a Volvo.
Sure.
I don't know. Depends.
Yeah.
Depends where you how you want to name your child, I guess. I've noticed recently a lot of like old lady and old men names coming back. Have you noticed that? Like
I haven't, but go on.
Yeah, like Doris and things like that. I'm noticing like I guess to book the trend of people naming themselves after Game of Thrones characters now. It's
right. Yeah.
Like proper Nana names coming back. They're making like a comeback, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just part of the generation that really like their nanas. Maybe.
Oh, that's nice.
Who knows? Speaking of sniffers, if I was a sniffer, I'd be really pissed off at being given such a rubbish name. Makes them sound like the kind of superhero who'd rifle through your laundry basket. And then he finishes off saying, didn't love it, didn't hate it. That's all. Derek.
I like it. So, unfortunately, as we've discussed many a time, for him, it's like that, as you said as well, a bit of a meh movie.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I wonder where he falls on the sniffer grabber line. Unfortunately,
toucher, feeler.
Yeah.
I think he'd probably stick with sniffer. I think, but yeah, it definitely does. It does have some connotations, certainly.
For sure, yeah.
And again, the way they present them, the way they introduce that power, and they're like,
yeah. Definitely meant to be gross men, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. But then they give it to Ming-Na Wen, and she's just like, dainty little sniff. Ooh, I was like, okay, whatever you want. Yeah. But yeah, okay. I think we've come to a natural close. Is there anything you'd like to promote? I mean, I've already mentioned my recent appearance on your podcast. You might as well talk about that.
Yeah, you have. Thank you very much. You jumped in and saved the day when my original guest was unable to join me, so I very much appreciate you. I think we had a really good chat actually about EdTV, so that was a lovely episode. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but that is already out and available, and
it is out.
Probably many episodes since then, because I think I'm a bit down the line on your schedule, aren't I?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, there's a few collaborations that have all kind of landed all at the same time. So Page of Apocalypse, Andy's Wake in Fright, then Disney discussions. So then I'm gonna put you somewhere. Again, it won't be a long wait. I think probably a couple of weeks at most. But yeah, yours will have been out for a little bit. Probably next episode will be out by the time this one comes out, I think.
So Bats of Filmography will be trundling on. Yeah, it's good fun. I really enjoy it, and I'm sort of getting past that really difficult stage. Matt and I were struggling to find our collaborative ground for a while in some of the earlier roles he had, but it's the whole point of the show, right? It's to look back at where actors start, and it's been interesting to be able to do that for somebody who really had to kind of claw the way up a little bit compared to the stage when I had him as my first subject. I think McConaughey's had a bit more of a a bit more of the traditional route where you've got to graft a little bit to get where we want to go. So yeah, I'm about to hit kind of the rom-commy McConaughey sort of, so the famous McConaughey phase, but perhaps not his favourite McConaughey phase.
It's probably his most popular, I'd say, arguably, maybe.
Yeah.
Especially for the ladies, I think, because it is his those films are, that's the demographic that they're aiming for. So yeah, I think you're going to get into a really comfortable, fun era, as opposed to what you've had before and the kind of things we've talked about.
Chainsaw, Lone Stars, just murder and incest. That's all.
Yeah, this is good fun. It's good fun. Like that's why you have me on. And our next one, Tiptoes. Not to say much about that, but that will also be a very interesting one to discuss. Again, don't think anybody was clamoring to do that one either, but I'll certainly do it because I'm doing Superman 4 with Scott, and I don't think anybody was jumping at the opportunity to do that one.
Everyone thanked you for that.
People were like, do you want to do Superman 4? And I was like, yeah, sure, because everyone was like very quiet when it was like, oh, I'm asking all these people, who wants to do this? Everyone grab their opportunity, and then they were like, I was like, I'll do Superman 3 or 4 because I've probably talked about 2 and 1, and I'm sure 2 and 1 will be taken because people want to talk about those as opposed to those. And I was like, yeah, I think I prefer 4 because it's just bad, like really bad. I think 3 is bad generally, but not in an entertaining way. But 4 is an entertaining.
3 has the cool Clark Kent Superman fight, right?
Yeah, I don't remember it being that cool.
And it has the woman being turned into an android, which was fucking
that's
scary.
Terrifying. That is terrifying. There is that, But yeah, I don't know. I think it's one I hadn't seen. I think I'd seen 1 and 2 and 4, but I think 3 was kind of a late one for me. So I think I got to it, and by the time I got to it, I was like, bleh.
And 3 is Richard Pryor as the main bad guy, right?
Yes.
Oh, scary.
Yeah, terrifying. They're like, get him in, he's funny. Okay. He said he wanted to be in. I think it's that situation with Paul Giamatti when he's like, I want to be the Rhino. I want to be the Rhino. And they were like, do you actually want to be the Rhino? And he's like, yeah, sure. I think it was very much like, oh, you said you wanted to be in the next Superman. Do you want to be in Superman? What's the money like? Where are the drugs? That's probably what he said. You ever set yourself on fire? He's I love Richard Pryor. He's amazing stand-up. Just absolute class. But yeah, I'm merely joshing about him. But yeah, so that'll be interesting. But yeah, Tiptoes. It feels oddly relevant with the release of Snow White as well. So
that's true. Yeah,
we'll get to it though. We'll get to it. We'll talk about it. But yeah. I can't wait. I genuinely can't. I think I was like, when's our next one? He's like, oh, isn't it? You were like, oh, it's not for a while yet. And I was like, shit, when is it? When is it? kind of sort of like hyped about it, sort of more excited about it. But yeah, I may feel more positive about that than this. Who knows? But we'll certainly find out when we get to Tiptoes, our very, very, very Tiptoes. Yes. So yes, go and sign up to Jack, subscribe to Jack and his podcast. It's amazing. I really like the journey. I think it's a really interesting idea for a podcast as well, and it allows you to talk about so many different things and what you like about an actor and how they develop and how they grew as people and performers, and also you get to talk about films that people will never see, which is what interests me the most. Like I'm never going to see, what was it? Scorpion, whatever, and
Scorpion Spring,
Scorpion Spring, and what was it? The other one, what was the one you did with Rhea? That weird one.
Oh, Boys on the Side.
Yeah, I'm never watching that. There's very rarely do I listen to a podcast and go, thank fuck I didn't do that one. Yeah. And again, I'm doing Tiptoes and Superman 4. But I was like, fucking hell, no. Thank God. But no, that's the fun of it. You discover these things and you discover hidden gems, and you also discover things that probably should have stayed hidden.
Yes, for sure.
But there you go. But I will leave it in the show notes. I will.
You will. You're a good person in that way.
I'm good. I try my best. But speaking of good people, much like Jack himself, you can find me on spiderdown@secretballs.com. But my patrons over on Patreon, who are lovingly subscribing to me, and they are getting extra content for every pound they donate to me. They get polls, so many polls, more polls than they can handle. Sometimes they don't even know I've put 2 up or 3 up or 4 up, and they don't have an idea. They're like, I can't keep up with all these polls. And I'm like, I know. Let's just get through them. Let's do it. And we're almost there. We're almost at a point where I'm thinking, okay, we can pull back on the polls now. But we also
pulled out,
pushed in. I pulled, and and we're all pumped out. But yeah, so, and you get your exclusive ones. I do comics again, like Push. I'm doing the prequel. I don't do adaptations because I'm like, I don't really get the point in adapting a film into a comic anyway. That's just me. But there's some good ones out there, don't get me wrong. But I like to do the continuation, so prequels or continuations of series, games, shows, what have you. I've just recorded the Push one. I've just recorded an Escape from New York one. So those will be coming out very shortly. And again, there's polls to get involved in, get stuck in. So I'd like to thank I Am Jack's Musings, Tony Farina, Tonya Todd, Simon Cotton, Paul Meller, Mike Burton, Angry Andy, Math, Scott Hodgson, Rhea Carrigan, and Sarah Coyne. Thank you all for your continuing donations. It is very much appreciated and helps Prattle World keep on turning. And if you are ever in a position to help the podcast, please consider it. If not, please consider leaving a review, a comment, or sharing on social media.
What an elite group that is.
Oh, it's a powerhouse. I'm very lucky to have them, and that they get so stuck in. They're all voting, they're all listening, they're all enjoying. And again, we've got some others that I've let in, but they do not get on the roll call of honor because they have been gifted a membership. But I do appreciate them and all that they do as well, and I hope they're enjoying this free gift. And I hope that they appreciate it enough that maybe they will sign up once their free gift is over. But thank you again, guys. This has again been another great podcast with Jack and another Secret Defenders. So many. I know you said the other year, like, do you do these anymore? When you were asking about what you wanted to do a Secret Defenders? I was like, that's all I've done this year. It's pretty much Secret Defenders. And we've got, I think we've got maybe some more coming up. We'll see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to, the year is very much filling up my schedule. So we're almost kind of all closed off, but we've got some alternativity polls coming up, which you will be a part of. So that'll be interesting. And again, it'll be guest versus guest. And will you rise to the top? Will you be the cream of the top of this poll or not?
Or I'll just move my way. I'll just push them, move them. I won't sniff them.
I
might shift them.
Yeah, you might shift them. You never know. You might shift them. You might have shifted some people and pushed them to liking this film today. I certainly hope you have, or at least to giving it a chance. Don't just listen to me and my negativity. Give Push a chance and see what you think. You may even like it as much as Jack, but you may not. But you don't know if you don't try.
Love
right. Well, we're gonna call it a day. I'm gonna shut my brain down because there's been a lot of thinking going on, a lot of internal and external debate tonight. So, but I thank you. It's been very interesting. I think you did an excellent job defending it, even if I was not in a mind to defend it or to receive those messages from your pushing. But I've had a blast talking about it, and I'm sure people have had a blast listening. So good night, everybody. And as always, prepare for Prattle.